it's working. Let me check. Takes sometimes a minute. Okay, there it comes. Okay, everybody. Wow, happy first Epiphany. This is the first day of Epiphany, so we're in the season of light. Yep. And I'm just trying to. This was such an enlightening day, such a blessing today. Um, on day 1985, just giving thanks to God for Mitch Snow and Stu Peters, and of course, Candace Owens, for allowing Richard's name, allowing our son's story to be presented to the public on a platform that has a wide audience. We're very, very, very grateful for that. And we just want to thank all of our followers too that have been following us for over 5.5 years, investigating our son's case and behind the scenes, investigating, finding all of the evidence, going through all the leads. I mean, I heard Candace Owens today say she's just so tired because, she just wants a normal life. But when you are investigating and following leads of people with this kind of crime, this huge, huge crime, and it's a network. It's hard work. It takes many years, many years, um, and so we have some insight of the 5.5 years that we want to add to what happened today. And so let's get started. This is, we've been doing this almost for 2,000 days right now, right? Day in and day out, and going on live to make sure everyone knows that we're still alive, because we're dealing with very dangerous people that intimidate and threaten, trying to ruin you just because you want to know what happened to your son, a soldier, a whistleblower. Um, so, let's get started. 1,985 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room on Fort Bliss, taken to the basement room, which is the arms room. It's a soundproof room where he fought. He absolutely fought. He was outnumbered and they took his life. Our intelligence has given us information that one of the perpetrators got hit in the mouth so hard by Richard that he needed to have emergency dental surgery. Um, so, Richard fought. Um, President Trump has absolutely corroborated what the Department of Army Board of Inquiry has determined because of our um, filing. Richard's father, my husband, my gold piece, he is a total hero along with Richard, a total hero because of the filing and filing and filing and filing of all the evidence that we have documented and put together and submitted, and keeping up with all of that. And of course, the Department of Army had really no choice because the evidence was so overwhelming and so conclusive that they had to declare him killed in the line of duty. And so, all of the smears out there from the deep state, who are the deep state, the infiltrators into our bureaucracy, those that are up to no good in our bureaucracy to um, be in those positions. They have a reason to be in the position, not to honor their oaths, but to protect the traffickers, okay? To protect the criminals, to um, uh, to create government contracts for loads of money, legal theft, right? Legal theft. Excuse me. And so, that's why they're in that position. And that's why politics is so important in all of this, because they want to get in those positions. And so, of course, politics is a big part of this with the government contracts. Excuse me. And with, I should have got me a drink beforehand because I've been talking so much today again every day with all the leads. It's incredible. But absolutely, uh, the to protect the crime, the criminals, the predators, the government contracts, or to sway government contracts, right? Or to create government contracts. Um, uh, it is really it's a criminal organization business model, right? And the underlining common denominator in our son's case is this Mormon faction that are tied with the cartel. And how did that happen? Right? How did that happen? Well, in the United States years ago, we had laws against polygamy, right? We had the anti polygamy laws. And these Mormon faction, because I don't want to lump all the Mormons together. I want to say a Mormon faction that believed in polygamy packed up, and even in Canada, they packed up and they moved down south to Mexico, which allows polygamy. And I think this is a big problem, and that's a whole nother podcast, right? Is why polygamy is such a problem and what it creates. But so this Mormon faction went down to Mexico, and they set up colonies down there. And these colonies uh, there's lots of them, but center on Nova Casa Grandes. Okay, Nova Casa Grandes in Chihuahua, Mexico, which is right across the border. And these individuals, this Mormon faction, for the most part, they're dual citizens, right? They're dual citizens, and they can cross that border all they want, and it gives them the dual citizenship, gives them leverage, right? It gives them a lot of leverage. And this, in our son's case, this Mormon faction, absolutely connected to the cartel, to El Mayo, to El Chapo, to the Juarez cartel, to the CJNG cartel, to the Sinaloa cartel, and more, right? And of course, a very good example of this is, well, you have the Romneys, which I don't know if they're involved in all of this, but they're definitely in the colonies. And he almost became president, right? Mitt Romney, his family, that his father's father was born over there. Um, that's a good example. But one that I know that's up to no good, that's absolutely connected to the cartel, that's family has means in Mexico, and he, yeah. is the assistant special agent in charge in the El Paso FBI office, Colin Wetton. Okay, because he's the one that received our son's reports, and then he notified the cartel of our son's name and information, putting a target on our son's back. So this is, and he is a Mormon faction. He is, his family is very much part of the Chihuahua colony, Mormon colonies, and um, and he's up to no good. He's absolutely up to no good. So now getting to what just happened on Stu Peters, and I have it up on the screen. I don't have. I'm doing this by myself tonight, so I just want to go through what Mitch Snow said to Stu Peters, and it's pretty shocking. You can see Stu Peters' face there. The whole thing is very shocking because the real point to all of this, as our family has discovered, is that the security community, the security on Fort Bliss, in El Paso, and Fort Huachuca, has been hijacked by infiltrators. Are they American citizens? Yeah, some of them are, and some of them are not, right? Um, are they in the military? Are they like the director of emergency services? He's another example. Thomas Kane is another example. He was a director of emergency services on Fort Bliss. He had total control of all of the surveillance cameras on Fort Bliss. They absolutely know who did this to our son, who stole his body after they did their dirty deed, and trafficked him to Mexico, and did unspeakable things. Um, so it is, Thomas Kane is part of the Mormon faction. He's part of this security team. We know that a 14-year-old girl, because it was reported in the news widely, they couldn't hide that fact, that a 14-year-old girl under the command of Sean Bernabe, the worst of the worst type of commanders, the worst of the worst type of commanders, who does not deserve to wear our uniform, does not deserve any of the stars he has, does not deserve anything but to face the death penalty. That's what he deserves. Um, and under his command, a 14-year-old girl, a stepdaughter of one of the security guards, was living in the barracks on Fort Bliss for 4 months. 4 months being used and abused for money, what they do with little girls, 14-year-old girls, people that are predators, but also, uh, could be lying about our age and compromising our soldiers, because we know that they were taking videos. We know that Richard had videos that he turned in because they would airdrop these videos. They would airdrop, terrible things, and they would absolutely fill our barracks, which we are a military family. We know that there are standard operating procedures for the barracks, that there's supposed to be checks and everything, and none of that was done. The command sergeant major, which Shaky Jake, he was just shaking all the time, shaking like, I mean, shake, shake, shake. I named him Shaky Jake. Um, and of course the JAG were so afraid of everything going on that, I think they one time came in with one of them had wet their pants. And I'm not joking. I'm absolutely not joking. And everyone that has insider privilege knows knows that story. Um, in one of our meetings, right? Um, because it is scary stuff when you're setting up our soldiers to be compromised, when you have drugs flowing in the barracks and unauthorized weapons and unregistered weapons, which is all on record, and 14-year-old girls living in the barracks. Why would you do that? If you were a commander that wanted to build a esprit de corps fighting force, right? Why would you want to do that? It's to compromise our soldiers so that none of them could be a whistleblower. And that's why Richard was very different. He was very different because he was not compromised. And that's why they spent a lot of money, um, and sold their soul, sold their souls. So many people are going to hell for what they did in the smear campaign against our son, because he is a stellar soldier, a distinguished honor graduate, and very courageous. And they spent a lot of time and money to smear him, and of course intimidate him and try to set him up and everything. And they put a lot of false narratives in the media, which we have been fighting for a long time. And so we hope that you don't listen to that false, those false stories about our son. Um, and because these people, these people are, you know, God doesn't take being a false witness lightly. There's only 10 commandments, and thou shalt not bear false witness is one of them. It must be very, very important to God to not lie like that. And yet they did. They absolutely did. And and we have debunked everything. Everything. There's not one thing. He is sparkling, sparkling clean. And they don't want you to know that, because that makes him a very, very reliable witness. And even after his death and what they all did to him, um, his reports, his witness testimony is valid, is uncompromised, and from an uncompromised whistleblower. And you see that they try to smear. I mean, look at Alex Jones, and maybe I shouldn't even say his name on here, because and maybe I'll start the video. I'll start the video, and I'll go through this because Alex Jones is mentioned in this video, and I can stop it and give you a little commentary about our experience with InfoWars. So let's get started. This is Stu Peters. Today or yesterday, those eyes, Mitch Snow doubles down on Erica Kirk at Fort Huachuca.
They hit them where it hurts the most. They hit them with CPS. They threaten their children, and they ratchet up these attacks as time goes on, especially if they won't just sit down.
So real quick with the CPS, Richard made multiple complaints to Child Protective Services. So CPS is Child Protective Services. And in El Paso, Richard made multiple complaints to CPS. And let's just say they don't honor FOIAs.
And shut up and fade into obscurity. But now, after what Mitch saw at Fort Huachuca, this has reached the next level. And the very same people who have been trying to destroy Mitch Snow for years on end are now joining forces with well-known individuals and organizations in yet another attempt to crush Mitch Snow. And this time, there are more lies flying around than ever before. We've seen people like Alex Jones releasing to the entire world manipulated and deceptively edited video footage and trying to mold Mitch in the mind.
Okay, real quick here too. Our whistleblower, Judge Roger Rodriguez, who put in a whistleblower complaint notifying many agencies of the foul play in our son's case and identifying the prime suspects in our son's case, and also the tampering with files, the leaking of files. They retaliated against him with tampered evidence, and so this is the operating procedure for these evil criminals. And here, somebody that's been very trusted by the conservative conservative community in the United States is now engaging in this kind of deception. And it's just, well, I guess today's epiphany, the light has exposed who people really are.
Of the public into a woman abusing hammer attacker, which is exactly what Alex Jones called him when he released the manipulated footage. He called him, Alex Jones called Mitch Snow a hammer attacker, who, as the video footage proves, didn't actually happen. Mitch Snow never attacked anyone with a hammer. And it's not just Alex Jones, although he is a point man in all of this, but there's a cadre of bought and paid for internet personalities coming after Mitch Snow. Some of them are even pretending to be Mitch's friend or his brother in arms. People like Valhalla, a retired special.
Real quick here. This is also another standard operating procedure for these evil people, because when we weren't notified about our son, and we had to call the army, we had to call Richard's captain to get an update on what's going on with our son, because we hadn't heard from him. And when that happened, all of a sudden, all these news media agencies were calling us. The phone was going off the hook, and individuals that were, I would call them agents, operators, psyop operators, or agents for generals, or like spies for generals, spies for um, probably certain groups or whatever, maybe even the FBI, you never know, that were contacting us, befriending us, only to really stab us in the back. And I think that this is very clear in what has happened to Mitch Snow. That's why we don't listen to the news around Mitch Snow. I mean, the noise around Mitch Snow, because of what has happened to us and to our son in these 5.5 years.
Forces member who was happy to talk about Mitch, not to Mitch. Even when Mitch paid $20 to send a super chat to Valhalla before he had ever appeared on Candace Owens' show, telling Valhalla that he had information on Fort Huachuca and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But instead, Valhalla got drunk and ignored him and went on talking about his man crush, Ian Carroll, and about how tall, dark, and handsome he is. He ignored Mitch Snow's direct attempts to communicate and get his story out there. And instead of talking to Mitch, Valhalla dragged out some estranged son who, in his attempts to assassinate Mitch's character, accidentally, inadvertently confirmed that Mitch really was on Fort Huachuca when he says that he was there and that he really was taken into military police custody, just as he said that he was, because he got a phone call from the military police.
Yeah, and the media is not going to spread that truth, right? They're going to hide that truth, that now Mitch Snow has been verified that he was on Fort Huachuca, even by these bad players, right? They won't. So every time we debunked a smear campaign on us, on my husband, on our children, on Richard. Richard was the one they were really smearing, but they came after all of us. That's why we decided that I would be the voice, because there has to just be like one voice out there, because the attacks come so often, that you need to stay focused on debunking one at a time, right? So, but they were really smearing Richard. We were debunking that. Of course, they've smeared me, and it was a very good decision for us to just have like one spokesperson. And so, if you're ever wondering, about our family, that's why they were just attacking us so bad, and still do, still do. So this is really very clear. It's the same operation. Hmm.
Then you have guys who were willing to talk to Mitch, Gary Mountain, and Gary approached him as a Special Forces brother as well, only to reveal himself as yet just another member of the den of vipers that's trying to destroy Mitch's life and destroy Mitch's credibility. He offered to help Mitch. It's disgusting when you listen to this conversation. He tried to charm him into establishing a rapport and then acted like he was acting in Mitch's best interests. But as soon as they finished their conversation, which Mitch recorded and provided to the Stu Peters Network, which I have subsequently posted on X, Gary Mountain immediately turned around and stabbed him right in the gut. He started coming after him.
Yes, and that is exactly what happened to us. And people that have been following us from the beginning know exactly who those imposters were that were, like schmoozing up to us. They were counterintelligence. They were reporting to other people things that we knew. And when the time came, they absolutely, would turn around and act like enemies. Now, the other thing I want to say about our experience with these bad actors and imposters and agents and whatever, um, uh, informants, I think, um, is that they would try to set you up. They wanted to, gaslight you or get you upset, get you mad, get you to say something that you would regret. They were absolutely trying to entrap you all the time. And just being under God's grace, we saw this very early on, and we had to take a very calm stance from the very, very beginning, and a friendly stance, because we knew that anything that, and there's plenty of videos out there where I'm very angry, right? But even that had to be very controlled, because they were always trying to entrap us. And praise God that Rob has such a stellar 30-year service in the Army, because they had access to everything. They had access to our whole history, and they were going through it with a fine tooth comb. And you see this with Mitch Snow. And remember that Mitch Snow, at 18 years old, saw, was putting out those sensors, and caught that subterranean sensor going off, knowing that there were tunnels, that there were cocaine trafficking tunnels, and that those operations were not only cartel but connected to military bad actors. And I don't want to, I should say, a military faction, right? In Arizona on Fort Huachuca. And that's why he was in Fort Huachuca 35 years later. But in those 35 years, he had been a witness. And these people, it would not surprise me if they did a Brotherhood of the Bell on him. And if you haven't watched that movie, The Brotherhood of the Bell, or even Gigi, the musical Gigi, create a Gigi. Well, Gigi was good, but create what they wanted Gigi to be in the first place. Um, I do not doubt at all that things happened in his 35 years that were meant to, um, you know, hurt his record, hurt his record. Um, and I think he, for the most part, did really well for what I think were psyop attacks on him. That sounds very conspiratorial, but coming from us, we have every right to say it because they did it to us, and we know it for a fact. And so it's not hard for me to say that that is absolutely possible that they did that to Mitch Snow starting at 18 years old and into his later life. So let's go back to this.
He accused him of stolen valor. He dogpiled with Alex Jones and the rest of these people to try to crush Mitch's story. And now he's threatening legal action against Mitch for recording their phone call. Yeah, because he's terrified. But people like Alex Jones and Valhalla and Gary Melton, they're not alone in this situation. Morgan Ariel has inserted herself. Evan Kilgore is in the mix as well, doing everything that they can to attack Mitch. Evan Kilgore claims that he's talking with Mitch's former friends and former girlfriends and long-lost family members who are giving them the rundown on just how bad of a guy Mitch Snow actually is. But in reality, these people are just throwing everything at the wall and hoping that it sticks. All of them. They're all hacks. They accuse this guy, Mitch Snow, of everything under the sun, from spousal abuse to child abuse to working on behalf of British intelligence alongside Candace Owens, because they're trying to sow doubt in Mitch's testimony and steer their viewers and their listeners into buying the official Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson assassination narrative, or a controlled opposition narrative that drives them away from the truth, that drives them away from Fort Huachuca. These people are running cover for the people in the operation that murdered Charlie Kirk. An operation that quite obviously is still ongoing, especially when we're talking about the information sphere, which is being pummeled with anti-Mitch Snow disinformation, which of course is all meant to take your eyes off of reality and sweep you up into things that just don't matter at all. Which is why we just really haven't entertained it, because people like Alex Jones and the rest of them, they want you to believe that in order for someone to tell you what they saw and what they witnessed or experienced, that they have to be perfect. They have to be godlike. They have to have wings like they're an angel or something with a halo over their head. And you know what? That's just not true. Mitch Snow is trying to share some of the most...
So I had to stop it again because when we drove to Fort Bliss and had these meetings, remember there was probably an $80,000 meeting called Task Force Find Richard Halliday. It was an international meeting. It had over 15 plus agencies, and including Mexican Army, Mexican Fiscalia, and uh, you know, it was just ATF was there. It's like, really, ATF is there? Oh yeah, okay, ATF is there. Richard must have reported on weapons trafficking, right? Weapons trafficking. ATF was there, and FBI was there, and marshals were there, and CID was there, and the Army, right? The Army, including the generals, and not just any general. This was the provost marshal, the dual-hatted and IG of the Army, in charge of CID. She became, so here she is, Lieutenant General Donna Martin. You can look her up. She's there out of uniform, and so was Sean Bernabe. Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, the commander of Fort Bliss, he was out of uniform. So was every person in the Army there. You know, the others that came were in uniform, but those in charge uh, were out of uniform. Well, what does that mean? That they wanted to be unofficial. And then we found out that there was no operational orders for the task force fine. Richard Halliday, probably $80,000 meeting. Um, there was no intention at all because I knew he was dead already. Um, they already had found his remains by that time, and hit him, trafficked them. They, gave him to the cartel. Gave him to the cartel. Gave our son's remains to the cartel to do whatever terrible things they want to do to it. The level of crime is just unspeakable, and so yeah, I just have to put that in.
Important information of our lifetime with the entire world. And he's doing so at great personal risk and great personal cost as he.
Correct. And also, I have to remind everybody, and especially if you're new, that when we were at the meeting and all the other meetings, we were told that we had to be the investigators, that the CID, that the command could not do anything for us unless we brought them leads, that we needed to do the investigation. Yes.
Finds out that these feds and soul sellers are working around the clock to take him down and dismiss his story, which no one has been able to disprove or debunk. Let's get down to brass tacks here. Just keep in mind, no one has been able to credibly refute what Mitch Snow says that he saw on Fort Huachuca on September 8th and 9th, 2025. His testimony, especially regarding Erica Kirk and the Turning Point USA insiders that he saw on Fort Huachuca, has been met with incredibly shaky alibis or no alibis at all. Everyone's behavior surrounding this has been incredibly strange and flat out bizarre.
Yes.
Which is a major indication that Mitch is onto something.
Yes.
And so are we. So with that said, we wanted to talk directly with the source of this information. We wanted to extend our platform to the person that Alex Jones has been trashing without extending the same invitation.
So, yes, so he brings on Mitch Snow now. And so I'm going to move a little bit forward to where he starts talking about Richard. I think it's around there. And, this is where Stu Peters absolutely, we just want to say thank you so much to him because he gives Mitch Snow this platform. And those, which when we started finding out about our son, unraveling their false narrative, debunking their smears, and actually finding real evidence and leads and submitting them, and then them lying to us, right? And then attacking us, intimidating us, threatening us. And it just got so bizarre that we knew that Richard absolutely is a hero. We knew because the reactions were so bizarre and so out of the normal operating procedures of the Army, right? So I just want to say that was a huge indication to us. And so here is Mitch Snow, and I believe he's going to be talking about Richard at this point.
It's really bad in Benton County, but it's all across the country. Being a part of some of these groups, my heart goes out to them. Another, if you become a whistleblower, especially with the government, they will send these people out after you. They will take you into family court. They'll turn your flesh and blood against you, just as they've bragged about for the last week. They will do this, and you don't need to believe me. you can contact Patricia Halliday and see what they did to her son, which is, that gives me shivers and shakes just thinking about this poor man who tried to do the same thing, stand up for what was right. See, he was what who he was where he was, he saw what he saw, he tried to report it to the White House, the federal government, the FBI, the DEA. He tried to do the right thing and be a whistleblower. What they did to him on a military base, the sister base to Fort Huachuca, Fort Bliss, it is terrifying. This man was killed on base, supposed to be in protective custody, supposed to be getting protected by the federal government, supposed to be getting protected by his own unit. And instead, he disappeared on a military base. They were able to confirm later that he was killed on that military base, drug off the military base, drugged to Mexico. Miss Halliday, I'm sorry for saying this, but the facts are real, is apparently dismembered in Mexico. Miss Halliday, you want to know what real grieving is about? You look at that lady and her husband, a lieutenant colonel of the United States Army, where they have done nothing but try to find their son's body. They just want him returned. They want justice for him, just like I want justice for me and my son. And not only have they not been given justice, they are now being silenced on YouTube, on any channel she gets on. This lady gets on YouTube and has a channel every single night just to let people know she's still alive because they've come after her that much. I think it's what these people do and what they're doing to me. I've become weathered to it. Let them come.
So, I've watched it several times, so you have to watch it several times to control emotions, right? To control the emotions. And I just want to say thank you so much to both Stu Peters and, of course, Mitch Snow and Candace Owens, because Candace Owens dared to listen to him, dared to have him on. And now that a little time has gone by, because time is the timestamp, right? Time is, there's no justice without timestamps, without records. That's why the records are so important, and that's why tampering with records is such a huge crime, because there's no justice unless you have those timestamps. And so as time has gone by and they've checked his story and they've allowed the smears and the attacks to continuously batter him and see where it all fell, right? They realized that Mitch Snow is onto something, that he is absolutely a reliable whistleblower. And they're freaking out. They're freaking out because not only, and I have spoken with him. I have spoken with him. And for his safety, for my safety, for our family's safety, we didn't mention it. But he had reached out with very important and new information. And we're so grateful, to the look. Someone asked me, did you ever find any kind soul? Well, you're looking at him right now. He's kind, right? And of course, Judge Roger Rodriguez. You can't, they were so after him. I remember Angela Kachurga calling me after they found out that Judge Roger Rodriguez had submitted a whistleblower report, complaint of the tampering with Richard's file by CID, Tavita Nusa, who subsequently had his badge removed and his credentials removed. Um, but, she was not upset that a Fort Bliss CID agent would leak our son's file, would tamper with our son's file, would obstruct our son's investigation. That's not what upset her. What upset her is Judge Rodriguez's whistleblower complaint that we were notified about it, because we were notified by his goodwill to call us, like Mitch Snow called us, to notify us, because even though it was on Sean Bernabe's desk, even though it was on Ted Cruz's desk, even though it was on multiple agencies' desk about the foul play, the tampering, the leaking, the identifying of the prime suspects in taking our son's life, they didn't notify us. It was Judge Rodriguez who notified us. It was Mitch Snow who notified us. And of course, the connection with Fort Huachuca and El Paso was known to us, because it is TRADOC, and we know that TRADOC was attacking us. We know that they assigned a casualty affairs officer to us, who was an asymmetric warfare officer trained. This is the training of asymmetric warfare is Fort Huachuca. Okay, is TRADOC. And why are they assigning a casualty affairs officer to us that is an asymmetric warfare officer? And then it got really good, because we caught him conducting asymmetric warfare tactics against us as our casualty affairs officer. So, and they kept from us Nadal Baim's name. They kept from us who Danae Katzen is, and all of her cartel family, scamming family, and her other connections, and her husband's connection to 143 ADA, the Army, and with DHS, and with, being a West Pointer. They kept that information from us, and I can go on and on and on about the information they kept about finding our son's remains. And so we had to investigate, and that's how we got so many of the audios. Remember that we have audios from even Joe Spencer of the Walmart mass shooting of 2019. And this is where people really need to understand why they went after Richard, because they had their people in place. They had their security, quote unquote, for the predators, for the traffickers, for everything. They had those in place. What they were really worried about, because Richard absolutely was multiple times contacted CPS, was in communication with FBI Houston, was in communication with the White House, was in communication with the IG, the CID, absolutely about criminal trafficking, you name it, when it comes to the worst type of crimes against children, reporting it, weapons, all kinds of reports. But what they really, really went after him for, okay, because they had coverage for all of that, including, I mean, look, they trafficked 500,000 children through Fort Bliss. That's on record. That's in Congress. That's not me. That's on record. That's not a conspiracy. I mean, it's a conspiracy to do it, right? But it's on record. It actually happened, and they're actually finding the children. The new number out, I think, is 126,000 children that they found that were being trafficked. I mean, in order to find 126,000, they were trafficking loads, hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied migrant children and other children, because this, what Candace Owens brought up in her podcast tonight was absolutely about the worst type of crimes against children being connected to Fort Huachuca. So, and we know, we have names, we have identified the crimes, we have documented the crimes, and we have filed the crimes. Day in and day out for 5.5 years. Day in and day out, we've done that. Filed and filed. It's not that we just run our mouth on a live stream just to let people know that we're alive because we've been threatened. But we are absolutely filing, which is, just incredible. It's just incredible. What has taken place. So it's on record. They know it. They know exactly where we stand because we have recorded it and recorded it every which way. And we received through our investigation hard evidence like the recordings to Sam Joe Spencer in the Walmart case, because through our investigation, what they really, really went after Richard for is he was the witness tying Fort Bliss to the orchestration to the Walmart mass shooting, to the 2019 Walmart mass shooting. And through our investigation, clearly it was orchestrated. Clearly it was an operation, which corroborates Richard's reports that Fort Bliss was connected to the Walmart mass shooting. And that is what, because it's so sloppy done, and we have filed and filed all of the evidence with the Mayellas, with Patrick Crucius being surrendering 2 times, being totally clean head to foot, being severely mentally, having the severe mental conditions and being autistic, and of course the Mayella family being in the FBI, being in the federal courthouse where they were conducting the case on Patrick Crucius. And we've looked into um, being in the DA's office, being in Walmart cybersecurity, right? Global security, having access to the videos there and everything, the security footage there. We have the videos of Patrick Crucius going in, who was targeted, a German, a German. Why was this German Hoffman targeted? I think it was kind of like a Charlie Kirk thing, right? Because it was a headshot. It was absolutely a professional shot what they did to Alexander Gerhard Hoffman, and right there in the front door of the Walmart. But the video doesn't show um, 23 and 23 or 22 injured, 23 killed, 22 injured. It doesn't show what the narrative was put out there, okay? Because the whole crime scene was staged. The crime scene was staged. It was bloody, but we don't know how did they bring them in, what day they brought them in. We know that the death certificates were tampered with. We have documented and provided all the hard evidence, done all, conducted, the FOIAs and all the stuff that it takes to put to solve a case. So solving the Walmart case, and solving our son's case, and doing this vicious negotiations for our son's remains with President Trump. And why is President Trump involved in this? Because the Walmart mass shooting was against him and his 2020 campaign. It was election tampering. They didn't want a secure border. They didn't want President Trump's policies, and they wanted him out, and they were willing to do anything to get him out. And he, of course, like there were warrants for Cesar Duarte's wife for money laundering in 2019, and she had to flee over to Miami to hide out in the United States. We have all of the evidence of what he was doing. Of course, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2019, and his Zorro Ranch was, north of the north border of White Sands Missile Range, giving them a very protected airspace over White Sands to fly right into Oto, the Oto beacon there that is like just miles from the Zorro Ranch airstrip. So we have done this hard work to connect all these things together, and the internal attack of the security and intel community was on President Trump. And you saw that through the next 4 years of the empire. Everyone's thinking about, oh, United States wants to be an empire. We are an empire. We've been an empire. Anybody that's in the military knows we are already an empire. We have military everywhere all over the world. So, this is not something new. This is, and being under Biden, and I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm saying that we're in the United States, and the United States is in this situation, and we can't be shocked that we have an internal battle going on, an internal mutiny that I've been even reporting on. And clearly, with the Walmart mass shooting, that was an internal mutiny involving Fort Bliss to affect the 2020 election. And because Richard was a witness to that and willing to whistleblow on that and submit reports about that, he was targeted. That was, and of course, Glennon Oakley Jr. Was another one. He was found not alive in his barracks room in April of 2020. So this is, the main thing is military operations that are doing major crimes to affect politics, to tamper with elections. That's what this is about. And, you have Charlie Kirk saying, look, we don't want the RNC the way it is. The Romneys were out. Remember, the Romneys were in charge of the RNC. And he was a huge competitor. He was their opposition. And he started these programs, Too Big to Rig, many of them. And he wanted TPUSA audited also. Audited. He wanted to audit his own company. He knew something internal was not right. And so this is where Candace Owens comes in. And I should have gotten that ready, because here is Mitch Snow absolutely corroborating, and it didn't take much for him to understand what this security community did to Richard, right? Um, it didn't take, he understood it very quickly, and which was so nice. Um, and so we understood what he was going through also because of what we've gone through that he didn't even know about. Um, so then Candace Owens comes in and she's talking about Farnsworth, right? Terrell Farnsworth, Eddie Farnsworth, I think, and this David Fordham. That was the pornographer, up to no good with children. He's serving time in jail, but under the oversight of Arizona that looked the other way, that allowed this to happen, just like what was going on in El Paso. Okay, you have hundreds of thousands of children being trafficked, and they're just all looking away. Veronica Escobar looking away. Beto O'Rourke, he's employing the family of the cartel La Diabla, right? That's what he's doing. He's probably having barbecues, living happily next to the Purchase Arellano Caron family, who owns the Plenitude Crematorium, in sacrilege, with 400 rotting bodies at one time, in on their property right over the border, while they're living in El Paso, right next to Beto O'Rourke, right? And his wife running being publisher to the City magazine, right? The City magazine. I mean, so they're controlling, have influence over the media, and they're total criminals. They're just total, you know, uh, monsters. This is what President Trump calls them, monsters. And so, why is President Trump doing things that he's doing? It's unconventional because what he's up against is so unconventional, right? And and he's working on a world stage. I can't even imagine. And here we are, really our focus is El Paso, the epicenter, because as El Paso goes, so goes Texas. As Texas goes, so goes the United States. As the United States goes, so goes the world. So, you know, to see Maduro, that is the way because of course Rob was in, my husband, he was in the Gulf War, right? In Desert Shield, Desert Storm. He was deployed all the time because he was a physician assistant. All of this stuff with the excuses, the democracy, blah 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 blah. All the lies. They were just telling us so many lies, and what choice did we have back then? We were just so shocked. Um, and we were just hoodwinked. We were just absolutely hoodwinked, and the majority of people today know that we were hoodwinked. And you know uh so lost my train of thought for a second there. uh so you're in this. uh Geez, I lost my train of thought. um Oh, well, I'll come back to it. I'm just talking about how my husband knew. Um, and now I just lost what I was going to say. I'm doing this all by memory, and we're burning the midnight oil. Yeah, Candace Owens. Um, I really need to put on her video and go through it step by step, like Mitch Snow's, and Stu Peters. And, I am willing to talk to them. I'm, I want my son's body. That's what I want. And I think after 5.5 years of day in and day out, um, doing this, and on top of that, the investigation, um, and documenting it, and all of our boards that we have. We have a war room here, right? after doing this and knowing what has happened, um, I we don't want parades or anything. We want our son's remains. We want his very good name restored, and we want those that did this to him to face accountability, and the generals that were so mutinous, that are such traitors, that went after President Trump, right? They did this to Richard because Richard was a witness that corroborated President Trump's need to secure our border, right? Need to go after these criminals. Um, oh yes, now I know what I was going to say. With the Gulf War, they were talking about all of the democracy, democracy, and it was so refreshing now to see President Trump level with us so quickly. You know, just say we have the power. He's not legitimate. We went in there and we got him. He's a problem. And our intelligence is that he controlled the election machines, that he was flooding the United States with people in order to tamper with elections, and goons, the Tren de Aragua, to create violence in the United States. Um, so it was an operation. And he wasn't playing by the rules. Maduro wasn't playing by the rules. He had, he broke the rules, international law, respect for sovereignty. He wasn't respecting the sovereignty of the United States. He wasn't respecting the sovereignty of his own country. And so, you know, um, the life has changed. Politics has changed. It's no longer the same thing. We no longer respect Congress. That means the republic has been severely injured, and I don't know if they can come back from it. I think if we just disbanded our Congress and our Senate, a lot of people would cheer because it would save us so many problems and so much money. So things have changed. The rules have changed, and you know, it's just not working like it used to work. And I think President Trump has recognized that because look what they did to him. I can't even imagine what they did to him and his family. I can't even imagine. But I know what happened, and I know it was extreme. And so this is he has been absolutely statesmanlike. And people are like, oh, but he's talking to Israel, or he's talking to Russia, or he's talking to whatever. He's working on the world stage in a whole different situation that we don't even we can't even hope to understand. What we understand in our family, in our team, is that we have gotten answers ever since he took the oath. Uh, and we received the letters, we received communication, right? You think Biden ever tried to communicate with us? We got communication, promises, really, and he's fulfilling them, and he's doing it strategically. so that, if you're a big fan of General MacArthur, if you're, I'm a military brat. I'm a military brat. I know General MacArthur, and of course, my son-in-law's Korean. They love General MacArthur. They have a big statue there in Incheon, South Korea, of MacArthur, General MacArthur. I think they love General MacArthur more than the regular American loves General MacArthur. And if you know General Patton, and General MacArthur is just such a great example because he was the general that had the least amount of deaths on both sides, the enemy side and his own. He was very strategic. And I think that, when I heard President Trump talk about him, he really respects General MacArthur. And that means that he respects his strategies. And the Maduro, look, I don't think, uh, it could have been a real disaster, but it was very precision. It was a precision um, strike to take Maduro and his wife. So, and I think they're going to sing. And I think that's why he took his wife because, um, it's that kind of Gigi thing again. If you haven't ever watched that musical Gigi, I've watched it so many times, and I know all about these honey traps, right? Like in the director of DPS, Jose Sanchez, is we caught him in a honey trap, right? Um, he's totally compromised. So, it you know, I think maybe his wife has some intel to share. And I probably should have put a little birdie right next to Maduro, and say Maduro's wife, right? Because she's probably singing. She's probably singing. And um, you've got to have the evidence, right? You've got to have the evidence. And do you have to make some deals? He made a lot of plea deals. He made a plea deal with El Chapo's son. He made a plea deal with El Mayo. He made a plea deal with El Chapo. He made a plea deal with lots of them, to get, and I think his aim is Obama and Pelosi and Bush, and I just posted up Bush's picture, Bush and I think Beto and Veronica Escobar. Those, you don't think those names are really big, but Veronica Escobar was the co-chair for Kamala Harris, right? For Biden and then Kamala Harris, for both of them. And so, you know, uh, El Paso is the epicenter. And Beto O'Rourke is a huge player in this, and he was the opposition trying to be president in 2019, right? So he's not just a nobody. He's a criminal. He's a monster in my book. So I want to thank everyone so much for taking the time out to, um, listen to these very important stories and to share them. And I will be back on tomorrow. I'm going to really, uh, really wrap my head around this the worst type of crimes against children, which I try to avoid with everything, but it's connecting Fort Bliss and Fort Huachuca. Okay, it's connecting them. And there's a lot of evidence there, and that evidence has been buried. And so and we know that it has to do with Richard also, right? Um, and but the main reason why they went after Richard is the Walmart case, is the Walmart fraud case. Bloody, bloody, but yeah, very political. And yeah, that's why they did that. But he was absolutely reporting on the worst type of crimes against children, and they just have too many people in place to cover it up. And Fort Huachuca and this David Fordham case, years and years of abuse of children and reports of the abuse of children, and the worst type of films, making the worst type of films with, and all of the corroborating evidence, and they look the other way, yeah, they look the other way. And the person that even did policies, or was a relative of Terrell Farnsworth, and they have a common denominator. Again, these are Mormons. This is a Mormon faction, and they're just this Mormon faction. And I don't want to put all the Mormons in this. I'm just wanting to say that's why I put faction on there. This Mormon faction is up to no good. They're really up to no good. And if I was Mormon, I would do everything I can to expose these very bad actors that call themselves Mormons. And some of them don't even call themselves Mormons. They're Mormons, but they don't call themselves Mormons. They call themselves Christians. And they're not Christians, because Christians believe in the Trinity. Okay, and that's very important. They believe in the Apostles' Creed, in the Nicene Creed, in the Athanasius Creed. It's very important. That's the distinction. And because of believing in that, your whole way of life is different. And so that is why it's very important to make that distinction between a Mormon and a Christian. And a lot of these Mormons will call themselves Christians, and that's just not true. It's a false witness. So, thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back on tomorrow. Oh, let me read some of these comments. There's a lot of comments. So I see they've made a cover story for what happened in the El Paso Matters online publication. It says suicide after numerous personal and legal challenges. That's a smear campaign. That's and let me tell you, I'm not at liberty to tell you at this moment because of ongoing investigations. Um, but just know this: they're the very people doing these smears are the very people that were attacking Richard when he was still alive. Okay? Wrap your head around that. Um, I'm glad I got to catch her live. It's mostly over my head, but I've learned some things. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for coming on. Thank you. And it is a little bit convoluted, uh, but it comes all out, it combs all out, and it becomes very clear the more you listen. So, thank you so much for taking the time to do that.